Ever think about like how people go about their studies in college?
Yeah.
You know, some just seem to ace it while others, well, not so much.
Yeah, definitely.
It's almost like there are patterns in how people learn and whether those patterns work, you know,
Yeah.
lead them to success. And that's what we're diving into today, this whole fascinating world of learning patterns in higher ed.
Cool.
So our roadmap for this deep dive is this super comprehensive review article. It's called A Learning Patterns Perspective on Student Learning in Higher Education, State of the Art in Moving Forward
Okay.
by Jandy Vermont and Vincent Tonch.
Catchy.
Yeah, academics, right.
Right.
Love their titles. Now, I think what's really neat about this whole learning patterns thing, it kind of moves beyond just learning styles, you know?
Right.
Like, oh, I'm a visual learner. It's way more dynamic than that. It's about how you actually engage with the whole learning process.
Absolutely. This approach is really interesting because it considers so much more than just saying, oh, everyone has a fixed learning style.
Right.
It's about how we learn. Right. Yeah, yeah.
The patterns of engagement.
Exactly. And think about it, listener, whether you're like in the thick of it in college right now, trying to figure out how to study best.
Yeah.
Or maybe you're an educator and you want to understand your students better. Heck, even if you just geek out on the science of learning like we do,
Yeah.
understanding these patterns is super valuable. It's not about like putting people into rigid categories, but recognizing we all have tendencies when we learn.
And it has real world implications because we can create better environments for people to learn in
Right.
if we understand how people learn best.
Exactly. So today's mission, simple.
Mm-hmm.
We're sifting through this research, pulling out the juicy bits about learning patterns.
The goal.
Yeah. We want you to walk away really getting the main ideas,
Right.
the different types of learning patterns out there and what influences them, without getting bogged down in academic jargon.
That's important.
Right. So first things first, what even is a learning pattern in this context? Like, how did these researchers define it? Well, according to Vermont and Donch, a learning pattern is like a combination.
Okay.
It's how you do stuff in learning, your activities, what you believe about learning, and what motivates you to learn
Right.
at any given time.
Oh, interesting. So it's not just about behavior, it's your beliefs and motivations too.
Exactly. And they're all linked. And this actually builds on previous research,
Right.
like the student approaches to learning tradition, or SL.
Right. Yeah.
They looked at cognitive strategies, what you do and what motivates you.
Yeah.
And it also draws on earlier work on metacognition and self-regulated learning,
Right.
how you manage your own learning. So learning patterns brings all these things together.
So it's like a more well-rounded picture of learning
It-
than we had before.
Exactly. Yeah.
And there was a shift, wasn't there,
Yeah.
around 2004 from learning styles to learning patterns.
Yeah.
Why the change?
That was important. Learning style makes it sound so fixed,
Right.
Like you're born with it and can't change it.
Yeah.
Learning pattern makes it clearer that it's much more dynamic and flexible and can change over time.
Okay, so we've got these dynamic learning patterns made up of, like we said, activities, beliefs, motivations. What are the key ingredients? What makes up these patterns?
Right. So there are four main components, and these are the ones measured by the Inventory of Learning Styles, or ILS.
Right.
Even though it's called styles, it's really about the broader patterns.
I gotcha.
The first one is cognitive processing strategies, basically how you learn, how you engage with the material. There are three main ones here. Deep processing, where you really try to understand and connect ideas. Stepwise processing, more linear and memorizing information. And concrete processing, where you focus on how you can use what you learn in the real world.
So like your mental toolkit for learning.
Exactly.
Okay, what's next?
Next is metacognitive regulation strategies. That's how you manage your own learning. Planning, monitoring, all of that. It can be self-regulation, where you're in control. External regulation, relying on teachers or materials. Or lack of regulation, where you're kind of struggling to organize your learning.
Like being the project manager of your own learning journey.
Yeah, I like that.
What's the third one?
The third is metacognitive conceptions of learning. It's what you believe learning is.
Okay.
Like, do you see it as constructing knowledge,
Uh,
actively building understanding, or more like intake of knowledge, passively receiving info? Or maybe it's about using that knowledge in a practical way. Or maybe you see learning as something stimulated by education. You need that external push.
Right.
Or maybe it's a cooperative thing for you. Learning with others is key.
So it's your learning philosophy, basically.
Exactly.
Okay, last one.
Last is learning motivations or orientations. This is all about your goals, what drives you, even your anxieties about your studies.
Oh, interesting.
So are you personally interested in the subject? Certificate-oriented, all about those grades. Self-test-oriented, got to prove yourself. Or vocation-oriented, seeing it as career prep.
Right.
And then there's the ambivalent orientation. You're not sure why you're there.
Yeah.
It's a bit unclear.
Okay, so we have these 4 interconnected pieces of the puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
How you process info, how you manage your learning, what you believe learning is, and what motivates you. And they actually put this all into a visual, right?
Mm-hmm.
Figure 1 in the article.
Yeah, figure 1 is really helpful. It's like this big picture. It puts the learning pattern at the center and shows how everything is connected. Your processing is affected by your regulation strategies, and those are shaped by your beliefs about learning and your motivations. Plus, personal factors in your learning environment also play a role, and the outcomes of your learning influence how you approach learning in the future. It's dynamic. It's all connected.
It's not just a static snapshot.
Not at all.
It's constantly evolving.
Exactly.
Okay, so with all these factors, are there common patterns? Like, do similar combos tend to pop up in research?
Definitely. 4 main patterns show up again and again in the research. The first is reproduction-directed learning. These students are all about memorizing information, so they can recall it for exams. They often process things step by step without connecting ideas too much.
Right.
They tend to rely on external regulation. The teacher tells them what to do.
Okay.
Their main motivation is just to pass the test. They see learning as taking in information and spitting it back out.
So classic cramming for the exam type.
Yep, pretty much.
What's the next one?
The next one is meaning-directed learning. This is where students really dive deep.
Okay.
They want to understand the material, connect it to what they know, think critically.
Mm-hmm.
They're self-regulated, in control of their learning,
Right.
often going beyond the required material.
Oh, nice.
They see learning as building their own understanding. They're driven by their own interests. They're genuinely curious.
That's what every teacher hopes for, right?
Exactly.
What's number 3?
Number 3 is application-directed learning. Here, it's all about connecting what you learn to the real world.
Uh-huh.
How can I use this?
Okay.
They want usable knowledge. They might be self-regulated or rely on some external guidance, but they're often motivated by their career goals.
Practical skills.
Yeah, they see the practical value in what they're learning.
Okay. And the last one?
The last one is undirected learning. These students lack a clear approach. They're kind of unsure how to study, maybe because they're in a new environment. They often have a lack of regulation and need direction from teachers or even peers. They might even be a little ambivalent about their studies overall, not sure what they want.
Okay. So it sounds like feeling lost or a little bit adrift in the learning process.
Yeah.
Now, these are just like ideal types, right? Real people are more complicated.
Right. These aren't boxes to put people in. It's more about tendencies. People might be more meaning-directed in some subjects they enjoy and more reproduction-directed in others. Or maybe they combine approaches.
Right. We're all a mix. Yeah.
Exactly. It's not black and white.
Okay. So we've got these patterns. Now, what shapes them? Is it like your personality, or is it more about the learning environment you're in?
It's both, really.
Okay.
It's this interplay of personal factors and contextual factors.
Right. Let's start with the personal ones then.
Sure. So researchers have looked at things like personality, like, are open-minded people more likely to be deep processors?
Uh-huh.
It turns out they tend to be.
Okay.
And more self-regulated. Conscientious people tend to be more systematic in their learning. Anxious people may struggle with regulation. But these links aren't that strong, you know?
Okay.
It's not like your personality determines everything.
It's not a one-to-one thing. What else have they looked at?
Academic motivation is huge. Students who are intrinsically motivated, they learn because they enjoy it. They tend to use deeper processing and be more self-regulated.
Makes sense.
On the other hand, if you're motivated by grades, that external pressure,
Yeah.
you might be more likely to focus on memorizing and be less self-directed. But here's the cool thing. Learning self-regulation skills can actually boost your intrinsic motivation over time.
Really?
Yeah, it's like a positive feedback loop. You learn to manage your learning, and then you enjoy it more.
So a little bit of self-discipline can lead to more enjoyment.
I like
That's
this.
it. What about the goals people set for themselves?
Goal orientation matters, too. Students who are focused on mastery, on really understanding the material, they tend to be more self-regulated and use deeper processing,
That makes sense.
which aligns with the meaning-directed pattern.
Yeah. What about how people explain their successes or failures?
Right. So attributions and self-efficacy, how much you believe in your ability to learn,
Right.
play a role too. If you believe you can succeed with effort, you have high self-efficacy.
Hmm.
And if you attribute your successes to your effort, you tend to have a more constructive view of learning. On the other hand, if you think it's all down to luck or the teacher,
External factors.
yeah, and you doubt your abilities, you might stick with the rote learning approach.
So your mindset really matters.
It does.
Okay. What about more general beliefs about knowledge and intelligence?
Right. Epistemological beliefs and intelligence beliefs. Do you think knowledge is fixed or can it evolve? If you think it's fixed, you're more likely to favor memorization.
Right.
But if you believe you can grow and develop your intelligence,
Yeah.
you're more likely to embrace deeper, more collaborative learning.
So your fundamental views on learning really shape your approach.
Mhm.
Are there any demographic factors that come into play, like age or gender?
Yeah, there are some interesting findings there. Older students tend to be more meaning-directed. In some studies, female students value cooperative learning more. Having more prior education seems to lead to less reproduction-directed learning and less of a tendency to be undirected.
Interesting.
But it's important to note that these patterns can vary across cultures.
Right. Okay, so we've covered a lot about the person. Now let's switch gears and talk about the context. How does the learning environment itself influence these patterns?
It's huge.
Yeah.
Let's start with teaching strategies. When teachers heavily rely on direct instruction, students sometimes report lower levels of external regulation.
Now that's counterintuitive.
Right.
You'd think they'd need more guidance.
You'd think so. But it might be because the teacher is so in control, there's less need for students to actively seek guidance. On the other hand, learning-focused teaching, encouraging student autonomy and active engagement, that leads to more deep processing and self-regulation.
So the teaching style really sets the tone.
Yeah.
What about how students perceive the learning environment overall?
That's crucial. Students who feel like they're getting good teaching, they tend to be more meaning-directed and less undirected. If they're overwhelmed by the workload or think the assessments are unfair, they might lean towards more undirected or reproduction-directed learning. Interestingly, when they perceive an emphasis on independence in learning, that has a really strong link to all aspects of meaning-directed learning.
So feeling empowered to learn on your own terms is a good thing?
It seems so.
What about differences across subjects?
Right. There are definitely disciplinary differences. Arts and psychology students often lean towards meaning-directed learning. Law and econometrics might be more reproduction-directed.
Interesting.
Law students also tend to be more application-directed, probably because of the practical nature of the field. Economics and econometrics sometimes show more undirected learning. This could be because of the subjects themselves, the teaching styles, or even the kinds of students drawn to those fields. Interestingly, pharmacy students consistently show strong application-directed learning, regardless of their year.
Wow, so the field you're in can really shape how you approach learning.
Yeah.
Okay, final question. How do these different learning patterns affect actual academic performance?
The research is pretty clear on this, meaning directed learning generally leads to better outcomes across the board.
Okay.
Reproduction-directed learning tends to have a weaker relationship with grades. Application-directed is more neutral overall, but it can be beneficial in certain fields, like we said, pharmacy. Undirected learning, on the other hand, is consistently linked to poor academic performance.
So how you learn really does affect how well you do.
It does. There's also this idea of dissonance.
Okay.
That's when your motivations, your beliefs about learning, and your strategies don't match up.
They clash.
Yeah. And that can lead to problems academically. But again, it's important to remember cultural context. A study in Japan found that self-regulation didn't predict GPA as strongly as it does in the West.
Right, so different cultures might have different ideas about what leads to success.
Exactly.
Now, this research hasn't stayed still since that review article, has it?
Not at all. It's a growing field.
What are some of the new directions this research has been taking?
One big one is looking at learning patterns in different cultures and populations. Since 2004, there have been studies in all sorts of places. China, Colombia, Hong Kong, Mexico, Sri Lanka, the list goes on.
Wow, that's cool.
Researchers are comparing average scores on learning patterns across these groups. They're also looking at how these components relate to each other in different cultural contexts.
What have they found? Anything surprising?
There's been some interesting nuances. One study found that Chinese students scored higher on both reproduction-directed and undirected learning compared to Dutch students. But other research challenges those broad stereotypes, like the Asian learner.
Yeah, right.
One big meta-analysis looked at 8 student samples from 3 continents.
Okay.
They found meaning-directed, reproduction-directed, and undirected patterns in most of them.
So some commonalities across cultures.
Right. But they also found context-specific patterns, like one sample had a strong application-directed pattern. The main takeaway is that the specific learning environment and cultural context are way more important than just broad cultural stereotypes.
Right. Don't oversimplify.
Exactly.
What's another area where the research has moved forward?
Another big one is longitudinal studies.
Okay.
They track students over time to see how their learning patterns evolve.
Oh, cool.
These studies follow the same group of students for several years.
Wow.
They take multiple measurements to understand how their learning changes. This lets researchers see the development within individuals and groups, not just comparing different groups at one point in time.
And what have they learned from these long-term studies?
They've shown that learning patterns do change, but not always in a simple straight line.
Right.
Sometimes big shifts happen between certain stages in a student's education.
Like from high school to college.
Exactly. Transitions are key.
Yeah.
When the learning environment changes a lot, learning patterns are more likely to change too. Stable environment, stable patterns.
That's fascinating. Have there been any changes in the ways they study these patterns, new methods?
Absolutely. Questionnaires like the ILS are still common, but researchers are using other methods too, like structured digital logs where students track their activities.
Oh, that's neat.
Even online observation techniques like tracking eye movements to see how they process information.
Wow, getting really detailed.
Right, and the statistical methods have advanced too.
Okay.
They're using things like path analysis and structural equation modeling, SEM, to look at the complex relationships between different parts of learning patterns.
Right.
Longitudinal SEM analyzes those relationships over time. They also use multivariate, multi-level analysis and person-oriented approaches like cluster analysis and latent class analysis. These help researchers identify subgroups of students with similar patterns.
So they're getting a much richer understanding of the data.
Exactly.
Now, a big question.
Yeah.
Can we actually do anything to help students develop more effective learning patterns?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Since meaning-directed and application-directed learning are usually better for academic success,
Right.
a lot of focus is on how to encourage those higher-quality patterns.
Okay.
One approach is tailored feedback, training, and support, recognizing that not everyone learns the same way. Some need more guidance, others need more self-reflection. Supporting international students is another important area.
Right.
The key is that one size doesn't fit all.
Okay, what about broader changes to teaching?
There's a lot of research on innovative teaching methods and their impact on learning patterns.
Like what?
Things like problem-based learning, integrated contextual teaching, project-based learning, case-based learning, competency-based learning.
Right.
They all aim to get students more active and promote deeper understanding.
Okay.
Studies have shown that problem-based learning leads to more self-regulation and more constructive beliefs about learning.
Yeah.
Integrated curricula mean less memorizing and more diverse sources of knowledge.
So making learning active and engaging really makes a difference.
Yeah. It does. And it's not just about throwing in new methods. It's about how you introduce them.
Right.
A gradual implementation, like slowly phasing in case-based learning, that can have positive effects.
Okay.
But a sudden, radical shift can backfire.
So thoughtful and strategic implementation is key.
Exactly.
Wow, that was a lot. We really dove deep into learning patterns today. What are the big takeaways for our listeners?
So remember, learning patterns are this dynamic mix of how you approach learning, your beliefs, and your motivations.
Right.
And there are different types with different relationships to how well you do in school. Your personality and the learning environment both shape these patterns, and this research is ongoing. We're learning more and more about how these patterns work in different cultures and how they change over time.
So, listener, think about your own learning. What resonates with you? How can understanding these patterns help you learn better in the future?
And for educators, what can you do to create learning environments that support meaning-directed and application-directed learning?
Lots to think about.
Definitely.
And if you want to go even deeper, check out that review article by Vermont and Donche.
It's a great resource.
Lots of fascinating stuff in there. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time.
See you then.